apparently, if you're a counter sniper for the Secret Service, while you're supposed to be watching rooftops and preparing to take out a potential threat to the President of the United States, it's okay to be playing Wordle. Are you serious? Now, I told you that it is remarkable to me that the mainstream media, the corporate legacy media, has completely ignored the fact that less than 4 weeks ago, there was an assassination attempt on the life of Donald Trump. It is absolute outside the realm of possibility that people who are paid to cover American politics and leadership in Washington, D.C., have completely abdicated any level of responsibility on pursuing what should be the biggest story of the year. And that is the security breakdown of the Secret Service that allowed this assassination attempt to take place. Does anyone out there on a daily basis contemplate how close we came to Donald Trump being assassinated before our very eyes? How incredibly close this was, and how in the hell does this happen? I still think about it. I am unnerved by it. And we're supposed to just walk away saying, oh, look, the Olympics are going on. Simone Biles, she's the GOAT. I'm sorry. I'm not ready to go there with you. Yes, I know it's a big deal that Joe Biden stepped aside. Yes, it's a big deal that he was forced to side with a silent coup. Yes, it's a big deal that they hand-selected Kamala Harris. Yeah, of course, it's a big deal that Tim Walz is a radical socialist and he's the running mate now. All these things are big deals. None of it is bigger than the fact that the Secret Service had a absolute total failure of systems and procedures that allowed an assassin's bullet to come that close to murdering Donald Trump and upending our entire constitutional process. Well, we're still fixated on this story, and thankfully, our buddy Jesse Waters over at Fox News is also fixated. Also, thankfully, there's a good chunk of senators who are also fixated on it. One of them, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri. I want you to watch this segment with me because there are new revelations with regard to the breakdown that day of the Secret Service, new revelations as to how this abomination happened. And you need to know about it.
Woodwork. Furious about last week's press conference where the director, Ron Rowe, admitted the agency failed but wouldn't fire anyone. Trump's entire protective detail's been an illusion. The rally in Butler was the first time the Secret Service sent counter snipers to a Trump event. And those snipers were communicating by text message without Wi-Fi. Only the locals had radios, and according to the Washington Post, the Secret Service wasn't even in the same room as they were. They were in a completely different command center on the opposite side of the farm. Basically, the Secret Service was playing a big game of telephone while Crooks was stalking the grounds. Who signed off on this disastrous plan? According to whistleblowers who've spoken to Senator Josh Hawley, it all comes down to the lead site agent, who they claim is inexperienced and incompetent.
All right. Now, we'll get to the Hawley part of this segment in just a second, but in case you missed all that, because it was a great breakdown from Jesse, they have great producers there who encapsulate these things. This was the first time the counter snipers had ever been used at a Trump rally this year. That's curious, isn't it? The first time they have counter snipers happens to be the first time they need to use a counter sniper to take out and kill the suspected assassin. That's, I mean, great timing, right? And how were they to communicate with these counter snipers that were positioned up on the roof above Donald Trump's head? Text message. Text message. You're not supposed to drive a car while you send and receive texts. But apparently, if you're a counter sniper for the Secret Service, while you're supposed to be watching rooftops and preparing to take out a potential threat to the President of the United States, it's okay to be playing Wordle and checking your phone for text messages. What did the local law enforcement do? Send a little emoji of a gun and a head? And are you serious? Oh, and the text messages didn't have Wi-Fi support, so they were relying on the cell towers that everyone at the rally was also using to take their own social media videos of the rally. So they weren't even getting timely updates on their text messages because of the strain on the cell network. This is Keystone Cop stuff. And we were told on day one that, well, yeah, we rely on local law enforcement to be our eyes and ears on the ground, but if they see anything, they radio to the command center. They're not on the same frequency of the Secret Service, but they go to the command center and there's someone at the command center who coordinates the communication. Remember that story? Now we learn, as Jesse Waters just laid out, that they were communicating, but the command center wasn't in one place. They had their local regional law enforcement command center, and then in a completely different room, they had the Secret Service command center. What the hell is the point? If you can't communicate a threat to the Secret Service, then who are you talking to? Clearly no one. They were literally talking to no one. And it all just happened to occur on the day that there happened to be an assassin there with a rifle shooting bullets at Donald Trump.
Senator Josh Hawley has been speaking with these whistleblowers, and he joins us now. Senator, what have these whistleblowers been telling your office?
Well, what they've been saying, Jesse, is that this individual, the site agent, the lead agent, was known to the Trump campaign to be inexperienced, to be ineffectual, to be, frankly, incompetent at their job. Well, I'm also told by whistleblowers that on that day, she was not enforcing the normal security protocols. She was not checking people's IDs. She did not use Secret Service agents. Most of the agents there that day were not Secret Service agents. They were Homeland Security agents. And get this, Jesse, most of them had never worked a rally before. And yet this is who she chose to staff the event with, and she didn't train them or integrate them. From top to bottom, it was a total disaster. Jesse, it is a miracle, not only that Trump is alive, but that more good Americans were not killed. It's unbelievable.
You're saying that the site agent in charge of this security in Butler wasn't checking IDs? What do you mean? She was just letting people in?
That is what whistleblowers tell me, is that IDs were not checked to allow individuals into secure areas, Jesse. In other words, it was a total free-for-all. Whistleblowers portray to me a circumstance, a situation that was totally out of control, where people were milling around, including in what were supposed to be highly secure areas. Nobody knew who they were. By the way, it was also the lead site agent's job to make sure that the line of sight for where Trump was clear, that agents could see all angles. And she didn't do that. In fact, I'm told that the line of sight was obstructed, which means that agents from different angles couldn't really see around Trump, couldn't see potential dangers to Trump. This is pretty textbook stuff, Jesse. And what whistleblowers say to me is none of it was done properly. None of it was done by the book. And frankly, when you know all that, it's amazing more people weren't killed. This person needs to be fired, as does anybody who had leadership on that day.
That's a great encapsulation from Senator Hawley about what the whistleblowers have told him. And again, just to summarize, no IDs checked in secure areas, people able to mill in and out where only law enforcement and Secret Service personnel were supposed to be there. And, about that law enforcement and Secret Service personnel, they had Homeland Security people there who have never worked a rally before. But then that goes back to the fact that the Trump campaign has continuously asked for more Secret Service personnel who are experts in this kind of thing, and they continued to be denied by the Secret Service. This one lead agent who was in charge of setting all of this up and coordinating it also neglected to clear the line of sight from the rooftops where a sniper might be able to get. And also, of course, presumably, they were the ones who determined that this rooftop where the sniper did, in fact, come this close from assassinating Donald Trump, that rooftop did not have to be in the secure perimeter. Now, that's all devastating and outrageous and maddening. Add to the fact, as Josh Hawley just said, this person should be fired. 100% this person should be fired. Not only have they not fired this person, they won't even tell you this person's name. They're trying to circle the wagons and protect themselves. But it gets even worse than that. It gets even worse than that. And for those of us who actually had so much respect for the institution of the Secret Service, those of us who thought that, yes, Washington, D.C. is broken, and yes, it's a swamp, and yes, these giant bureaucratic agencies get bloated and they go into self-protection mode and they've lost sight of what they're supposed to do. But at least we've got a couple of institutions that are still pristine, that still deserve the respect of the American people. And one of them is the Secret Service. If you're like that, and you're seeing this report, your heart is about to get broken even more. Watch this.
This person is still doing security. They're still in charge of security for political events. Why aren't they sidelined and under investigation themselves?
This is exactly what the whistleblowers who are coming to me, Jesse, want to know. And in fact, we know that this individual is still doing all those things because the director confirmed it. He told me under oath that, yeah, this individual is still working events. In fact, he said still doing investigations, which raises the question, is she investigating herself?
Right.
I mean, this is insane. And I'll just say this, Jesse.
Sure.
Whistleblowers are coming forward from the Secret Service because they can't believe what leadership is doing. They cannot believe that the Secret Service is not taking action to clear out the rot, frankly. They're scared to death this is going to happen again. We can't let it happen again. We've got to get the facts.
Was this site agent for Butler, was she one of these Cheadle hires? You know how Cheadle has an agenda. She just promotes people without merit. Was that person a person like that?
I don't know the answer to that. All I am told by these whistleblowers is that this individual was inexperienced, that she was known to the campaign to be, frankly, not very good at her job. They had concerns about this individual before the Butler rally. Again, when she was assigned to Butler, the campaign was worried. They thought, uh-oh, this has not gone well before. And my gosh, it didn't go well that day.
All right. Well, I'm very glad these whistleblowers are speaking out to your office. Please keep the public posted on some of these developments, because the more and more we hear about it, just the angrier I get.
Yeah. You and me both, Jesse. Yeah. That person responsible for all of those missteps, all of those errors in judgment, all of those, well, who knows, maybe even neglectful choices that were made purposefully. That person is still in charge of security for events on behalf of the Secret Service. I wonder if she's doing Kamala Harris's events, right? Do you wonder, how much do you want to bet that inexperienced buffoon who was responsible for what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, how much do you want to bet she's not handling Kamala Harris's events or First Lady Joe Biden's events? I would say Joe Biden, but he doesn't do events anymore. The news from the Secret Service is even worse, actually. Susan Crabtree, an investigative reporter for Real Clear Politics, has been covering the Secret Service for many, many years now. And she's really running circles around everyone else in town on this story because of her sources. And the latest exclusive she has from her sources says that the former Secret Service chief, that would be Kimberly Cheadle, who resigned in disgrace, even though Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden both expressed their support and full confidence in her abilities, even after the assassination attempt. Yeah, that chief, Cheadle, wanted to destroy the cocaine evidence from the White House in July of last year. This is according to 3 sources in the Secret Service. New details emerge about the unsolved cocaine mystery. There was a partial DNA hit on the baggie of cocaine found in exclusive space of the White House, and Secret Service leaders bungled efforts to make it all disappear. And there's now some question as to whether Cheadle and others in command of the Secret Service retaliated against top uniformed Secret Service agents over his refusal to go along with their push to dispose of the cocaine. Who in law enforcement does this? They find cocaine in the White House. It makes headlines all around the world. The Secret Service is responsible for the investigation. They spend a couple of weeks investigating. They come up with an unbelievable story that they have no idea who it is. And the investigation is over. It's inconclusive. I guess we'll never know who brought the cocaine into the White House. And then, at that moment, who, with any level of law enforcement experience or knowledge or wisdom or training, says, well, guys, investigation's over. Let's destroy all the evidence now. Who in the hell does that? Apparently, Susan Crabtree does that. Oh, excuse me. Susan Crabtree is the reporter. Long day. Apparently, Kimberly Cheadle does that. Kimberly Cheadle wanted to destroy the cocaine evidence so that no one else could pick up that investigation after she was gone. And when people in the uniform division of the Secret Service says, hell no, By the way, uniform division of the Secret Service, they're like cops, okay? They're not the ones in the black ties and the black suits and the sunglasses who are around the protectee and do all of the things and they're ready to take a bullet and everything. No, they're part of the Secret Service too. They're the ones who are in uniform. They're like the SWAT people. And they conducted this investigation as well. And they said, hell no, we're not going to do that because they actually have some level of professionalism and expertise. But Ms. Cheadle did. She wanted to destroy the cocaine evidence. Why, one must wonder? Well, I want to remind you of this video. The cocaine story happened on July 2nd in the White House. Now, when the cocaine was discovered in the White House, the first family was in Camp David in Maryland. That's the presidential retreat that's been used by presidents since Dwight Eisenhower. It's like a half an hour helicopter flight for the president and the first family. And Biden likes to go there a lot when he's not going to Delaware. It was July 4th. And they went to Camp David because for the fireworks on the 4th of July proper, they were back at the White House. They were on the balcony, right? And then the story emerged after July 4th that cocaine had been found. But no Biden was in the White House when the cocaine was found. Now, make no mistake, though, the Biden family had assembled at the White House so that they could all then go to Camp David together. Then they find the cocaine. And then the Bidens come back to the White House, stand on the balcony of the South Lawn, looking over the Ellipse and the Mall and the Washington Monument. And as a family, the all-American family that the Bidens are, they watched the fireworks. Do you remember how Hunter Biden was behaving that night while the fireworks were going off? Do you remember the mannerisms? Do you remember the pacing back and forth on the balcony? The rubbing of the head? Actually, now that you've seen and remembered Hunter Biden's behavior that night on the balcony, I now want you to turn your attention to his stepmother, Dr. Jill. Now, this is a moment when the family is assembled and they're watching the fireworks. It's a great all-American moment. Watch Jill. Watch her aware of Hunter Biden's behavior. Watch her grasping onto the rail of the balcony like she's on the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. She seems kind of tense, doesn't she? And isn't Hunter Biden acting like a guy who lost something? Isn't Hunter Biden also acting like a guy who's on something? Now, I'm not suggesting Hunter Biden would be the type to have or use cocaine because there's nothing in his history that would suggest that. Oh, wait a minute. No, actually, there's quite a bit in Hunter Biden's history that would suggest that he would be the guy who has the cocaine and used the cocaine. And it sure seems tense on that balcony between the family, especially with Jill. It's almost like Hunter said, guys, we got a problem. Look at Jill's face. Now, I remind you of this, not just to gratuitously make fun of the Biden family and kick them while they're pretty down, but there's a larger issue here. I want to remind you about why Kimberly Cheadle was where she was the day that a bullet came this close from killing Donald Trump. Kimberly Cheadle, the former director of the Secret Service, had a career with the Secret Service for a couple of decades. When Donald Trump was elected president, she quit. Now, we're not sure why, but I think it's fair to assume that pretty much anybody who was working for the Secret Service and then quit when Donald Trump was elected, part of that rationale was they didn't want to work with the Trump family. And maybe it goes so far as they didn't want to take a bullet for that man. I don't know that, but I think it's fair to speculate that. And I shall, in fact, make that speculation. Because when Trump was no longer president and the Bidens were back in the White House, Kimberly Cheadle was fine coming back to the Secret Service, this time as the director. And it's been reported by the New York Post and other news agency that it was one person's specific request that Kimberly Cheadle become the new director of the Secret Service. That one person who said, I want Cheadle as the head of the Secret Service, that very tense woman right there. It was Jill Biden. You see, Kimberly Cheadle was on the second lady's Secret Service detail when Joe Biden was vice president. And when the new administration began, it was Jill Biden who said, let's get Kim Cheadle to be the director of the Secret Service. Why is that important? Why is it important that it was Jill Biden who made the decision to make Kimberly Cheadle the director of the Secret Service? Well, let me tell you something about the Secret Service. They're known for two incredibly noble, admirable, almost heroic traits. The one is the trait that everybody knows about, that they are sworn to protect a member of the president's chain of command to the noble level that they would literally give their life to save them. They are sworn to take a bullet for the president, the vice president, members of the president's family, and members of the cabinet who are in the succession for the presidency. That's incredible. These are men and women who are made of stuff that most people aren't. That's something everybody knows about the Secret Service, that they are sworn to give their life for their protectee, and that's amazing. The other thing that the Secret Service does is not talked about very much, but it plays into this story. It plays into the cocaine, it plays into the Biden family, and it plays into Jill Biden specifically wanted Kimberly Cheadle to be in charge of the Secret Service. What's the other thing the Secret Service does? Secret Service keeps secrets, family secrets. You see, the trade-off when you're in a first family or a second family, the trade-off for the incredible protection you're given and the peace of mind knowing that the president and the wife of the president and children and on are all protected by these incredible men and women. There's a downside to that protection. You have to let these Secret Service agents into your life, into very private, personal moments in your life. The Secret Service is always there. There is always an agent there to protect the president, to protect the first lady. They're in the car. They're in the private hotel rooms. They're in the residencies. They are always around. And because of that, the Secret Service hear things. The Secret Service sees things. The Secret Service knows things. The Secret Service knows everything, all of the little intimate details. The president and the first lady have a fight or an argument, Secret Service knows about it. If there's a scandal brewing and they have to talk about it, Secret Service knows about it. If their son is a coke addict and lost a packet of cocaine in the White House and they're talking about it, the Secret Service knows about it. The Secret Service knows a lot about the Bidens. And they know a lot about the Trumps, and they know a lot about the Obamas. They know a lot about the Bushes and the Clintons. In fact, one Secret Service agent was sort of ostracized after the Clinton presidency because he wrote a book about some of the things that happened between Bill and Hillary. You remember that? So Jill Biden specifically wants her friend, the person she knew that she could trust from when she was second lady, to be the new director of the Secret Service. And it was Kim Cheadle, and she leapfrogged over people who had more experience and were probably next in line to be director of the Secret Service, but Jill wanted Kimberly. And so she got the job. And then something so weird and so bizarre happens that cocaine is found in the White House, and the family had just been there, and then they left to go to Camp David. Cocaine is found. The family comes back. Hunter Biden's acting like a maniac. But the investigation led by Kimberly Cheadle and the Secret Service comes up with nothing, maybe a partial DNA sample, but nothing else. And then Kimberly Cheadle, Joe Biden's hand-picked selection for the Secret Service, wants to destroy all evidence after the investigation comes up empty. These are all amazing coincidences, aren't they? From the lack of security at the Trump rally that led to the assassination attempt on the first time they ever had counter snipers, and the counter snipers were there to kill the guy who was the attempted assassin so that they could never hear or learn anything about him or have a conversation about him. And how did he get in? And there were no communications, and the command centrals were upset, and no one was talking to each other, all the way up to the cocaine and the destruction or attempt to destroy the evidence. These coincidences are just remarkable, aren't they? I mean, super, super dumbfoundingly remarkable. What are the odds? What indeed are the odds?